Hey guys, Brandon from Grimdark Australia here, finally coming at you with this Ravenwing tutorial. I know it's taken a long time to get out, but I've just had a lot of stuff going on in the real world, but here it is. So we're going to base out the whole thing in Stonal Res Black Primer, 2 coats of that. Then we're going to come through with golden acrylics, white, titanium white. This is a pre-thinned paint and you can just throw it straight in the airbrush to apply. And what we're going to do is we're going to just start hitting some highlights all over the model, so that way our black isn't just a flat black color. If you've watched my Lumentas tutorial, you can do it the same way that I've done the highlights there, but for me, I'm just going to come through and just basically rough out some highlights of wherever light would be hitting the black, and try and get some sort of reflection from there. Don't stress too much if this looks a little bit too stark or a bit silly, because our unifying wash is going to knock that back down and blend it in nicely. Now, you can see there that I'm using the titanium white over the back feather pole there. Someone can tell me what that's called. And you can also use it on the wings on the front of the bike as well. If you want, you can use Stonal Res White Primer. I do come back in with that just to brighten them up and fix up the colours a little bit more. But the choice is up to you. So as you can see here, I'm just using that white primer just to come and brighten up everything. I'm not too worried about overspray here at the moment, going on to all the black parts that we've got, because you can come back in with some black primer on a brush and just block those back out, or you can leave it. It's up to you. Me personally, I usually just leave it and then just use my unifying wash to dull those back down. After that, go through and base out the rest of your colours. The colours that I've used to base everything out are at the beginning of the video. And once you got that done, we're going to come through and start doing some chipping. So for this, we're using some Citadel lead belcher, and we're just going to go around the leg greaves, the knee pads, all the leg joints, elbows, and around the bike. And we're just going to add a little bits of chipping and stippling over the top of our black armoured areas. This is just to create a little bit of visual interest, and just to apply some weathering to the model, so it doesn't just look like he's just walked straight off the ship. As a note to that, you can do this step in any way you prefer. If you've got like a frayed old brush and you prefer to use that to do your stippling and your chipping, or you use the sponge technique, whatever you want, you just choose what's best for you at this stage. Alright, so once you've gone through and done all your metals like that, we're going to go and get our dark brown wash, give it a quick shake like that. And then we're going to put that in the airbrush, jack our PSI up to 50, and we're going to give this model 2 coats of dark brown wash. The reason we do it this higher PSI is because I'm led to believe that it atomizes the pigments or something in it differently. I have tried doing this by hand with brush, and it didn't quite come out with the effect that I wanted. It came out a little bit glossy and wet, whereas when you do this with the airbrush, it gets a really nice coat over everything. It doesn't move around too much, and yeah, it just seems to come out a very matte, dry and dusted color. If you want to speed the drying process up, get your girlfriend's hairbrush, put it on hot, heat the thing up, and it'll dry in a few seconds. Now you can see how matte that color is. That's what we're looking for. Now, once you've done that, get some Q-tips or some cotton sponges or whatever you got, load that up with some mineral spirits, and we're just going to start dabbing that over. Now, we're not trying to pull too much away, especially around the white area. We want the mineral spirits to do a lot of the work for us in creating contrasting shadows and whatnot there. So we're just going to let that carry the dark brown wash off into the recesses and leave the rest of it there. Now once you're ready, go around the rest of the model, do all your black armor. I tend to mainly use the mineral spirits and the dabbing technique towards the outermost surfaces and try and let it sort of have a smooth blend into the recesses. I'm not sure if that makes sense, but yeah, that's what I try to do. So like on the top of the wheel guard there, like I will just try and do the top half kind of thing, where I would spray the titanium white ink and then let the rest drift off away. So once you're done with that, we're going to come back in with AK Interactive's True Metal Silver, and we're going to begin dry brushing that over the areas of the metal. We might even stipple some on the armor a little bit, but this is just going to bring up a little bit of shine to our dirty and weathered bike. Now, I understand the wax paints are a little bit annoying at times, but they are definitely worth putting some practice in on because they are very blendable with a lot of other things. So when you've got your enamels and you've got your oils there, you can blend these in and feather these into those paints really well. So now I'm just going to make my way around the rest of the model. So any bits that I've painted in this Runelord brass, I'm just going to add some Nicolax oxide, or give it any oxidization color. It could be turquoise lights, whatever. I'm just going to apply that to anywhere where I've done some Runelord brass. This is purely for a visual interest. It doesn't mean that it is verdigreed. It's just a cool color. Now, anywhere else I've got colors like the red and on the purity seals, I'm going to go through and just add a little bit of stippling or a little bit of edge highlighting to those just to bring up some more color. So here I'm just using some Mephiston red again just to bring it back up. I'll do the same thing on the wax seals, on the purity seal. And with the actual parchment part, I will use the Rakarth flesh, and I even come back in with a little bit of, I think it's Screaming Skull, just to brighten it up a bit more. And again, here I'm just using the Steinol Res white primer, just to add some stippling and visual interest to the white parts of the model. So I jacked the first model up with the OSL and I wasn't happy with it, so I'm using a second bike that I've quickly put together and painted up. So what I want you to do is I want you to quickly block out the source of the light in white, and then use our white ink or whatever you've got available, and I want you to start feathering in like a light source coming from that. So you're making a pathway from the light outwards. So for me, like, I'm just spraying on the insides of the guns there because the light's between the two of them, and then I make a little pathway from the light going up across the front tire guard. And then you've got the screen at the back there. You could probably be a little bit more careful than I have been, and I accidentally sprayed the front beak of the Space Marine. But just spray like a halo effect around the screen there as best you can, and a little bit over a white spray on the front chest plate of the Space Marine as well. So here you've got a couple of options. For me, I'm going to be using Golden's fluorescent blue, and I'm just going to apply this all over the front end of the model where the light sources is going out towards, and I'm going to be using this as a tint rather than the color itself. So I will do 2 coats of this to really reinforce that blue color on the reflective lighting there coming off the front guard of the tire and on the insides of the guns. You could alternatively use a contrast paint or any blue ink or even a thin down blue paint if you like for this. So now we're going to fix up our source of lighting, and we're going to be using Vallejo's Magic Blue for this. So just carefully use a little bit of airbrush and trigger control and just spray directly at the light there and get a really nice coat of Magic Blue. And if you're confident enough, add a little bit more tint to the insides of the guns there, just to show that they are closer to the light source itself, which has a bluer color, I guess. I'm sure someone can correct me down the bottom. I don't know too many of the fancy words of the way lighting works, but to me this looks cool and it looks about right. So the next color we're going to be coming in with is Vallejo Game Air's Electric Blue. Just hit that straight in the center. Next, add a couple of drops of that titanium white or any of the white ink or primer or any color you like. And then we're really going to focus that on the center of this front headlight. And it may take one or two coats, but we're trying to get the very center of it as white as possible. So coming in with that second coat, that there looks about right to me, and that's probably where I would leave most of my models. I probably wouldn't go too much further than that at the risk of ruining all our work. But we're going to have a crack anyway, so just very carefully that white right in the center. Our next color is going to be the screen there and on the inside of the bike, and we're going to be using Citadel's Hexwraith Flame. We're going to do 2 to 3 coats of this all over that front panel there where any of the lights are. If you want, you can do this by brush. I've just chosen to put it in the air gun because I don't mind the look that having that Hexwraith Flame, a little bit of overspray looks. I think it looks good. But yeah, up to you. You do you. 2 coats. Once you've got those 2 coats on, we're now going to be coming in with Golden's Fluorescent Green Thin Down. And we're just going to try and apply that right into the center of anywhere we've used this green. And this is really going to jack up the saturation and the color quite a bit for us. And it looks great. Now this step is, you can sort of play around with it. I haven't included in the color recipe, but I'm just using a dark rust pigment. I'm not doing this so much for actual rusting, but more because the way that I base my Dark Angels, I have them on like a red Martian sand type base, and I want to relay that on the models here. So here I'm just adding some of that red dusting to areas of the model that I think would realistically just sort of build up a little bit more than others, and just applying that over the top of everywhere. Now, to help kick up our black armor another notch in the weathering step, we're going to be coming in with just a lead pencil. You can use mechanical or whatever. I'm sure there's also weathering pencils out there. I think AK Interactive do one, but I'm just using a mechanical lead pencil that I had in my girlfriend's desk, and I'm just going through the model and just applying scratching all over the model on the black armor there. So this is just when you hit certain light points on the models, you'll see these scratches pop up, and to me it really brings out the model that much more. So as you can see, this is the first Osl test that I did, and I wasn't happy with it, so I've shown you the other one. Sometimes you got to play around with these things. A lot of the times when I show you these recipes and that, it's usually the first, maybe the second model that I've done, or I just have a rough outline, so I apologise if you're getting confused between the two different bikes. So I actually used this lead pencil to write in the script on the purity seals as well. I used to use like a little felt tip pen, but it was too dark in colour, so the lead pencil works fine. Now for the exhaust pipes, we want some muzzle burn, so use any gold or brassy colour paint that you have, thin it down and apply it over about halfway of the exhaust pipes. Let that dry, and then I'm coming in with some purple ink. You could use Drugy Violet from Citadel, or you could the Magos Purple Contrast. Mine's by Army Painter, but just apply that about halfway up the gold part, leading down into the silver. Then next we can come in with some blue. I think you can use, I think here I've used a blue contrast. I'm not too sure on the color off the top of my head, but just apply any blue contrast or ink and just layer that on between the bottom half of that silver and work it back halfway up the purple. And then last of all, you're going to come in with a black contrast, preferably Black Templar, or a black ink or a thinned down black paint, and apply that at the end there. Pretty simple. I usually prefer to airbrush this on because I think it gives a smoother transition, but being such a small model area and having already done all the other work that we've done, we'll just apply it by brush. It's absolutely fine, it looks great. So now we're just going to stipple some blood for the blood god on the top of our chainsword there, and then we're going to be using our airbrush to do some splattering effects up that side of the bike. Just because that's the arm that's going to be swinging the chainsword around, we'll keep the blood splatter to that side of the bike. So just load up your paintbrush with blood for the blood god and just blast some air from your airbrush through the paintbrush, and that'll splatter around. If it gets a little bit too thick in some areas, that's okay. Come back in with your paintbrush and just move it around a little bit, and just have fun with this part. So once you're done with that, we're going to come in one more time with a little bit of the True Metal Silver, and we're just going to lightly apply some stippling to the metalled areas just to bring up a little bit more of the sheen and the metallics in those areas, just to try and make them pop a little bit more. So don't be very sparing with this part. You don't want to go over the top. I have a habit of going over the top myself, but yeah, just take your time with it. Be sparing, less is more. So you can see here I'm actually about to go and start adding a little bit to the armor panels and that. You don't have to do this step. Like I said, less is more. Don't follow my own advice. But You know, if you want to and you think it looks good, go for it. If not, don't do it. If you're happy with where everything's at, just leave it as it is. But at the time, I decided that I wanted to add a little bit more chipping to the armor panels and whatnot, just to get more visual interest throughout the model. But with that done, that's going to complete the model for us. All that's left for you to do is to base it and add whatever pigments and stuff that you normally use. I hope that you guys enjoyed this one. I'm sorry for the wait. But yeah, if you like this content, like, share, subscribe, turn on your post notifications. It helps me know what you guys are looking for in these tutorials. But yeah, leave a comment down below and tell me what you're looking forward to seeing next, and maybe we can tee that up. As always, catch you on the next one.